Abhishekam, the consecration ceremony, according to Hindu rites of the temple built over the remains of Maharshi's mother, known as Maharubhutaswara, which started on the 14th, has ended today. Humanity, masses of it, started pouring into the ashram since the 13th, from all over India, especially from the neighbouring villages. The yagna ceremony began on the 14th at 8:30 p.m, when Sri Maharshi sat on an armchair, and not very far from his left foot, on the floor, sat Sri Sankaracharya of Puri, who had arrived that morning for the purpose. All round him sat a large number of devotees, visitors, and a huge crowd. The brief ceremony was over by 9 p.m, when Maharshi was taken to open the new big hall attached to the temple. Being too weak to turn the colossal key of the door, the youngster Patti turned it for him. He was taken directly to the inner temple and helped over the short flight of steps and made to touch the stone Sri Chakra, which stands immediately behind the lingam, as the symbol of the creative power latent in the formless spirit, Chit. He was then taken out and made to sit for the first time on the stone couch in the new temple hall, which was covered with red velvet cushions. People began to prostrate before him, half a dozen at a time. After a while he was taken out and lifted into the Yagasala opposite the hall, where a brief ceremony was performed. By then Maharshi showed signs of exhaustion and had therefore to be taken immediately to bed for the night's rest at about 10 p.m. On the 15th morning, the crowd swelled to over 10,000. Sri Maharshi's couch was placed on the north veranda of the new hall. Musicians with flutes, violins and tablas played by his side. Yagna ceremony went on at top strength in all the 3 yagasalas erected for the purpose. Flames leapt from dozens of specially constructed fire pits, fed by pure ghee and a special kind of sticks. Flame and smoke rose sky high to the loud chanting of more than 100 priests. But all this was drowned by thousands of voices from the crowd. The sight was impressive. The most silent man in this huge din was Sri Bhagavan himself, who was fully indrawn and totally unconcerned on the surface. But his disciples knew his joy at the fulfillment of a 10-year-old desire to leave for posterity a spiritual heritage of priceless value, a desire not of his own, but of a man. The Sarvidikari, who thought himself an instrument of Sri Bhagavan's divine will, conveyed to him not by word of mouth, but by mere thought. The value of this temple consists in its treasuring in its bosom the body of the mother of one of the greatest saints and sages that have ever lived, also in its being built stone by stone under the very eyes of the Maharshi, and in its most sacred portions being hallowed by his personal visits and touch. The dream has now taken shape. 10 years of tireless efforts have come to an end. The 15th and the 16th saw the crowd increasing by the hour. Such was the influx of the visitors from the Mofussil that by the 16th evening, when the brass vessels, the kumbhas, about 6 in number, were taken to the top of the Gopuram's towers, the total was estimated to be over 15,000. The grand climax came on the 17th morning from the Morvi guest house to the north wall of the ashram. there was one compact mass of human heads. Although it was an orderly crowd, movements were impeded, despite all the efforts of the volunteers to keep a way open. The Chief Minister of Madras State, Sri Ramaswamy Redaya, was expected. All the highest officials of the district and many magnates from Madras came by cars. At 11 a.m., Sri Maharshi was taken out to give the special signal to the priests on the Gopurams, temple towers, to start the Abhishekam. He gently raised his hand and the bathing ceremony on the top of the temple started. Then he was taken to the inner temple and made to place his hand on the lingam, just then installed in front of Sri Chakra. The lingam was soldered to its stone platform with 20 tollas of gold, 8 ounces, contributed by devotees. Then he returned to the new hall and sat on the stone couch, over which stretched a white silk canopy embroidered with silver, presented by the Maharaja of Dharampur. Then the Sarvadhikari, Sri Naranjananda Swami, was called and made to sit opposite the Maharshi, when Mrs. Taliakan read a short speech in English in his praise for his earnestness, his sincerity, and his unremitting efforts in building up the ashram and the temple, and garlanded him. The speech was immediately translated into Tamil, sentence by sentence, which pleased him considerably. The day ended with music and songs given by aristocratic young ladies from Madras, followed by temple music, which continued till about midnight, when Sri Maharshi went to bed, thus closing the Kumbha Abhishekam series of ceremonies and functions for the time. 27th March 1949. The lump which was removed from Maharshi's left elbow last month and which was thought to be healing satisfactorily, subsequently started to grow again, so that the eminent surgeon Dr. Raghavachari came today from Madras with surgical instruments to remove it. Sri Maharshi entered the ashram's clinic at 9:40 a.m. The operation lasted 20 minutes and ended at about 10:30. The lump, which has been temporarily diagnosed as neuroma, is seated on the ulnar nerve with 2 fibers in it. A section is sent for microscopic examination. The surgeon, we are told, performed the operation skillfully by cutting deep and removing the last cell of the growth without injuring the ulnar nerve, which controls the forearm and fingers. He does not expect a recurrence of the growth. The whole afternoon Maharshi remained somnolent due to the local anesthetic injection given to him before the operation. No one could tell if he is feeling any pain. April 1949. Sri Bhagavan's wound from the operation of the 27th March has not yet completely healed. It is healing very slowly. Our anxiety is not yet at an end. A week ago came the analyst's report, which diagnosed it as sarcoma. It has since a few days been mildly bleeding, but Sri Bhagavan's moods are as bright as ever, and the lustre in his eyes is not in the least dimmed. This morning a small boy about 10 years old by my side spoke to me in Telugu. Seeing that he was not understood, he walked slowly to Maharshi's couch, leaned on it and talked hurriedly to the master. Maharshi was all smiles and tenderness to him. Then he turned to us and explained that the child, having seen him lubricating his joints a little while ago, offered to do it himself, because in his opinion Sri Bhagavan was too old to rub them effectively. Then turning to the child, he told him, "If you are going to do the rubbing for me, then you must also do the eating for me," and called the attendant to give him bananas. But before the fruit was brought, the little boy disappeared.